All right, I wanted to capitalize on a couple of things that Evan and Paul said, maybe as a summary. The first of which is, that clicker doesn't work. In terms of the shape of what things look like from moving from the 1.0 line to the 2.0 line. So this is our architecture slide that collects the elements of the stack, right? So on the left-hand side, you've got the tick stack, and then Evan said what happened to the tick stack in 2.0. It's really just two parts, right? The database at the core and the telegraph agent itself. And Paul went through sort of the vision of what we're doing in that regard, and sort of to tie it all together as a summary. We're on a journey with you in terms of taking this from the notion of a time series database, which is high performance, making it time to awesome for you to solve problems that you have in your environments, particularly with time series data, purpose built for that, and moving to allow you to build your own observability platforms, right? So we're building a next generation tooling to allow you to build that sort of observability platform that Evan mentioned, to give you better visibility and drive autonomy into your systems. And of course, we want to capitalize on all the things that we've done in the 1.0 line, but with a key focus on writing less code. That was one of the things that we heard loud and clear, is that the databases itself provides all these great capabilities, but we're still having to write a lot of code sort of around it. And so how do we work on reducing that? Second, a faster time to awesome. What more capabilities can we provide you out of the box that are already there? Additional artifacts that could exist for you to layer in. User packages is one thing that we'll cover. And effectively, we want to enable even a more powerful ecosystem. So you're going to hear from Julius today and David from Grafana, part of the ecosystem, but we want to go even further than we've been able to do in the near term. And so what we have today is two talks, one that's focused on dashboards as code, and a talk later this afternoon from Russ Savage on tasks as code, to try to show you both where we are in the journey, and also how this ties in with some of the things that Paul and Evan just mentioned from a vision perspective. And sometimes, from a product management perspective, it's not always clear where we are in the journey or why certain things appear, particularly for some of those that are using the alpha already. You may be like, well, why is this thing here? Like, where are they actually going with this? And so hopefully through the two talks today, along with Paul's comments, we'll see how these things are kind of tied together. Okay? So we're going to start on looking at this notion of interactive and autonomous monitoring. So the idea is you're on a journey as you bring your data in, you're taking this metrics first approach, you're gathering telemetry from your systems, and then what do? The next thing you do is you start building queries to try to inspect and analyze that data and try to understand what's there. Do I have the information that I need? Do I need to extend my data collector to grab more pieces of information? There's this exploration that goes on at that stage. That's an interactive session that you're doing with your data. Again, whether you're using Grafana or our UI, you're exploring that data. And ultimately, you end up building some sort of dashboards that allow you to see that through the lens of time. Some really smart person said that, and I don't have a slide that actually quotes myself. That's Evan's special purpose. But the idea is, as you're going through that interactive journey, you end up with a dashboard. And then the question is, what do you do next? You want to move to autonomy. You're going to automate the ability for you to detect anomalies from those monitoring systems and dashboards that you've put in place, and then you'd like to be told about it, or you'd like to take a specific action. And the idea behind 2.0 is we want to tie all of those things together through Flux. So Flux is the backplane of all of this. In the 1.0 line, you had InfluxQL for the front part of this journey, the interactive part, and tick script and capacitor that Paul mentioned to try to drive the second piece. And we want to bring those two things together, common language across both, enabling all of that capability. So I'm going to focus on the dashboarding part, and then Russ will come back later and talk about the task part. So one of the things that we've done straight away, and I only saw a couple hands come up on the alpha, is we're trying to build a data exploration tool to allow you to get that interactive query part and exploration of your data done quicker. We don't believe that everyone should learn Flux in super detail. You don't need a PhD in Flux to get the value out of this. That's not the goal. I know many of you are smart builders and developers and care to dive in at that level of detail, and that's great, and we encourage your feedback and participation at that level, but I'd like you to be able to get value out of the language that we've built very simply. Quick tooling, easy to point and click, and get that experience done. Build your first set of dashboards and graphs. So The query builder is there to help with that sort of simplistic flow. Select your bucket, apply certain filters to the data, grab aggregate functions off the side, get that visualization going quickly. Of course, if you want to dive deeper, we have the script editor that's available. You can switch into that mode very, very quickly. You can actually use them in tandem. You can sort of get a quick query done through the builder and then extend that query even more deeply through the script editor. You've got access to the full-blown documentation off on the right-hand side for every function that's available from Flux, and you can actually point and click and drag those elements into the script itself. But this is still part of the sort of manual process of building up dashboards, building up cells, and getting a visualization that you're happy with. And of course, to do that, you go through the process of creating that query. Then you can save it as an individual cell and publish it into a nice dashboard. And you can do this in an iterative fashion and build up something compelling. So of course, one of the challenges is we also want to extend a number of visualization types that are available to you. And we want to do this in a way that only that we can take advantage of it, but that you can take advantage of it too. And so I'll show you what we're doing along those lines. So in addition to the sort of standard types that you've seen, we've added heat map, histogram, and a scatter plot to the visualization types. You don't have those in certainly chronograph 1.x. And upcoming, there'll be trace.
I'm not getting you off yet. So there's a fire alarm going on at the moment. You can see the flashing lights. Oh. They're going to tell us what to do. So in case you're wondering why the lights are flashing, they're on top of it. So
I'm on fire.
You're on fire, yeah. I didn't want you all stressed out going, do we have to sit through here while the fire goes on? Maybe, I don't know, yeah. Sorry.
All right. It's good I'm on fire. All right. So there's additional visualization types coming. Candlestick plot, for those of you that may be familiar with that. Trace visualization is a popular request. If there's others, this is the time in the alpha to provide feedback. We'd love to hear those things of the types of visualizations that you're looking to have. But definitely explore these, play with them, and engage with us from the community perspective. Now, the thing about dashboards as we're going through this is the desire for us is dashboards need to be self-contained. All the elements that you need to be able to build and compose a dashboard need to be all connected together. And so one of the things that you're able to do in 2.0 is define external variables. Some of those variables can be things like defining meta queries. In this case, I've defined a variable called bucket. I want to actually tap into the database and tell me what buckets actually exist. Now, why do I want to do this? I might have a thing where I have got a common dashboard where I can actually select the bucket from where the data is coming from. Now, one of the ways that I use this, I'm doing a lot of DevOps and systems monitoring. Actually, if you come to my talk tomorrow, you'll hear about how we monitor Influx Cloud and all of the journey that we've been on to do that over the last few years. And one of the things that I have is I have access to multiple buckets. I have access to high-resolution data off of all of the systems for 14 days. Every sort of 10 to 15 seconds, it's collecting information off of 12,000 Docker containers, as an example. So if that doesn't get you excited about tomorrow's talk, then don't come. But one of the things that we have is we've got customers who are really using their cloud instances over time. And so while I need the high-resolution data for things like problem identification and drill down, I don't need that high-resolution data a year from now. What I want to see is I want to see trend lines and trend information. So we go through the process of downsampling that data, but it's the same data that I use for the high-resolution data from a dashboarding perspective. I just want to see the dashboards over a longer period of time. So the thing that I want to be able to do is I want to be able to change the bucket, and I want to point from high resolution to low and use the same dashboard cells. So this is a way to create a variable to kind of go about that process. All of the variables that get referenced in the dashboards then are referenced in the description itself. And the idea behind that, of course, is we want you to be able to import, export, and share these as templates. So one of the new things that we've done in 2.0 is the creation of templates can be done from existing dashboards. So now you can create these artifacts and you can decide if it's an instance of something that you want to have and manipulate, or do you want to create an asset that then you can share and use with others that they can instantiate. Also, you want to take that and turn them into code, right? So that code is now available. You can do what with it? You can check it into your source code system. And so the idea that Paul just mentioned is we realize everybody has continuous integration and delivery environments that are coming up. Everything that you need and want to be able to do needs to be handled as code. And so the dashboards being self-contained, self-descriptive, You can export, import, check those into your source code control facility, and now use those to deploy into whatever environment you want to deploy into. That's the starting point. Everything, as Paul mentioned, is available through the API. So if you haven't explored the API, there's a swagger.yaml file that exists, or on the 2.0 alpha, you can just do /docs, and you'll get full-blown documentation of the entire API set right into your browser. So if you want to do all the API level access, it's all right there. Templates allow you to instantiate multiple instances of the dashboard, so now your users don't need to start from scratch. This is trying to make that faster time to awesome. So you got time to awesome now, we want it to be even faster as you go forward. So you'll be able to create and instantiate, version, and support these over time. So here's an example where I've created 3 different dashboards. These are some that actually exist in the alpha. So there's a tutorial around getting started with Flux. So if you do want to learn the deeper details of how to build Flux queries yourself, you can instantiate an instance of that, and it kind of takes you through how that works. The local metrics template is based on how do you want to monitor the open source alpha. So we gave you the monitoring dashboard for that instance right out of the box. And then there's a system template as well. We use that obviously to do things like monitor my laptop. Gives you great interactive experience straight away. And so those dashboards are available. And as we create more of those over time, you'll see those available as packages that you can just bring in. And that relates to what Paul was talking about. So where are we going with this whole notion of user packages, right? So there's Flux user packages. You kind of see where we're coming on the other side now with dashboard templating and the ability for you to integrate these things. And the idea is use the API, import, export, and share them. So then what does that mean? It means with the user package infrastructure, we should be able to offer and build composable solutions. Right? I don't expect us to replace, some packet, like, purpose-built packaged thing, but our differentiation is obviously that if we can give you a jumpstart kit to solve certain problems, you can take it the rest of the way and make it more specific for your own environment. So I don't believe that you should have to redefine and rebuild these dashboards exclusively on your own, and I want to be able to give you the code level access to allow you to import, export, share within your environment more publicly, and within the cloud environment as well. So this should be able to cover everything from the data source definition, which you can't do today, as Paul mentioned in Telegraph, right? Within Telegraph, they're all statically compiled things. But as we introduce a 2.0 version of Telegraph with a Flux processor inside of it, even the data collection, you should be able to push that out to the edge and get exactly what you need from that environment. The dashboarding piece, again, as you look at the stepping stones of where we're coming from and going to, dashboards, you can do this today. You can do the import, you can do the export, they're self-contained and templatable. And then queries and scripts. If there are specific enhancements that you make to Flux using the Flux language itself, you can package those up and share those with other team members. And again, collecting all of these allows you to build that composable solution. And again, Russ this afternoon will then talk about where we're going with tasks, notifications, and alerts, and how this relates to the whole integrated whole. So look on, definitely be on the lookout for the user-defined packages, and when that appears in our sort of 2.0 alpha and beta programs, that will be the place then to connect these two concepts. But hopefully that gives you a view from sort of the bottom up of as you're seeing certain features and capabilities appear in the alpha and where this connects with the vision that Paul just described. Okay, second topic. One of the things that we've heard very frequently over the past year is, hey, I love the look and feel of Chronograph, for example, or I love this particular widget, but I'm building, I think somebody over here mentioned, a customer-facing application, and I want to be able to just embed the one graph. Like, I just need that one graph. I don't want all the access to the user management features, and I don't want to give them the access to really anything else. So how do I take that piece, and where can I get that from in a way that is useful to me? And so we've done two things. One is we built two different open source components. The first one's called Giraffe, which is focused on those visualization types. So scatterplot, line graph, all of those things are in the Giraffe library. And a second one, which if it's not open source, it will be very soon, called Clockface. And Clockface are things like the buttons, the themes, the alert pop-ups, all of those things collected into a second library. So Giraffe, React-based visualization library, and we've used it ourselves to build the 2.0 UI. So we're using it, we're contributing to it directly, and then we're consuming it right back into the overall structure of the user interface. And so what we've tried to compile is the grammar of the graphic style that we're using, packing that into a set of web workers that can be deployed, and extensible and reactive. That's really the goal. Now, challenge at the moment, the developer-facing documentation is a little bit light, and so we've directed the folks from my team, documentation, to work with the developers to provide a little bit better guide of how to consume this particular library, but that's the state of where it is. So for those of you that are building those custom user interfaces, the two things we're trying to do, one, give you a toolkit that you can sort of leverage directly. That's InfluxDB aware, and you can use that straight away. And the second is we did also get a feature request for what we call anonymous dashboards. So ability for you to actually populate a screen that has sort of view-only access, and you don't have to show all the other elements with it. So we'll look to be exploring that as we go through the alpha and beta stages of this. Second, for Clockface, it's React plus TypeScript for building all of those other visual elements. This one actually already has the documentation embedded within it, so there's a documentation link that you can get to right from the GitHub issue, and you can essentially go through the left-hand nav panel. You can look at alerts, the alert components, the builders, the color policies and palettes. All of those things are available and exposed to you to consume. The other thing that Paul mentioned is in terms of rapidly building these applications, the client libraries, right? So we really want to take ownership over the client libraries that exist and make sure that they have that common look and feel and common capabilities. One of the challenges that we had in the 1.0 line is because some of the client libraries were community developed, they weren't sort of maintained over time. And so there were definitely discrepancies between features and capabilities as we continued to extend the database. So by bringing those things a little more in-house, providing a little bit more consistency, we hope that there's a better experience in terms of that consumption. And so the JavaScript client library, the Node.js one, that's the one that's most mature and advanced. So you can use that for building 2.0 applications, either in conjunction with Giraffe and Clockface, or you can just use those two things standalone. And of course, we're delivering that all in open source. Okay, so what to do next? Try it. So I know you have day jobs, you've got real problems to solve. Sometimes diving into alpha software or even beta software is sort of beyond the day job, but we really would appreciate your feedback. This is really the time to do it. What things do you really need? Use that interactive exploration and monitoring experience we've already built. Let us know what you like about it. Let us know what you don't like about it. Explore those new libraries that we published out, and send us your feedback. That is it, and I will take some questions. No questions. The fire alarm stopped, so apparently I'm not on fire anymore. Yes, sir.
Have you got anything in the libraries that helps on server-side rendering?
Help server-side rendering? I don't think specifically. I mean, I think that's happening within the Flux engine itself. You mean like paging and things like that?
Yeah, and if you want to show a dashboard on just a TV using standard hardware or a Raspberry Pi or something like that.
I see.
If there's lots of information equated to the whole.
Yeah, I think you should be able to use, well, yeah, okay, good question. We can actually follow up with Russ and some of the folks that are here in the break. Okay, other questions? Yes, sir.
In case you're building up your visualization,
Yes.
are you considering this still as a stateless object, like, for instance, Grafana does today also?
Mhm.
If you refresh your data, you're always pulling the full data?
Yes.
Or will you have the capability of only pulling more recent data, adding it to the data you already pulled before?
Yes, that's a great question. So Flux actually has a notion of stream. Oh, sorry. Hi, thank you. You are? Do I know you from? Got it. So the question was, are we considering essentially streaming results and not refreshing cells based on a full pull of the data set every time you sort of refresh the browser? And the answer is that's certainly possible to do. And it's something that we're looking at as we go forward. Flux actually is the way in which that can be done, because Flux will actually stream the data out to us. And so there's a mechanism in place for us to be able to do that, for sure. Other questions? Don't be shy. It's okay. All right, if you are shy, oh, one in the back.
Yeah, so what's the merit of using Grafana and the UI data,
Huh?
or Chronograph and the UI data over Grafana?
I don't care what you use. I mean, honestly, I don't. Use what works.
Use Chronograph along with InfluxDB.
Use whatever you want. That's my recommendation. I'll tell you straight out, like, it's weird to demo your own product with somebody else's product, right? Let's start with that, right? That's a thing. We built Chronograph because there were sets of capabilities that you could not tap into from the Grafana side, particularly a lot of the administrative capabilities. But once we're already down that path, it was like a very short leap to sort of build the dashboarding pieces. So for Chronograph very specifically, we built it as a single data source only tool. So it was a thing to connect to InfluxDB 1.x. And as Paul mentioned, like, our strategy on going forward is embedded UI capabilities that include all of those things yet again, but directly connected to the database, so there's not something else to set up and install. But absolutely and fundamentally, and this is something weird that comes up all the time, I have no intention to compete with the Grafana guys. They're great partners. Their tool is great. It's multi-data source. It connects to all things and things that we don't care about and don't connect to. So use them as you wish.
I'm about to kick you off there, Tim.
All right.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Thanks, Tim.